Hey everybody, Kurt Shaver here, ready to roll on the Modern Sales Mastery Show. Hey, and again, as we say right there, thanks for joining us live, everybody. As you know, in the Modern Sales Mastery Show, you've got three different hosts that cover this, 3 out of 4 Vengreso partners. Today, it's my turn, Kurt Shaver. I'm the Chief Business Officer at Vengreso, and honored to be one of the hosts of this, along with my partner, who's the CEO, Mario Martinez Jr., and one of my other partners, who is the Chief Visibility Officer, Vivica Von Rosen. Today, I'm going to be talking about how to generate high-quality LinkedIn leads. So let's get going. I'm sure everybody on here now wants to generate more leads. So before I actually get into the meat of it, I'm going to give you some resources at the beginning. I'm going to give you some resources at the end. So certainly on a very wide scope, Vengreso practices what we preach in terms of social content posting. So you can find it a lot of different ways depending on which different platform you prefer. Of course, you can follow our LinkedIn company page. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, which typically has a couple of very short, bite-sized video tips every week. And then, of course, we're also very active as on our corporate Twitter page. So any of those will keep you up to date on the latest modern, digital, remote, virtual, call them whatever we want, selling skills. So today we're going to be talking about, again, LinkedIn prospecting, how to get leads, how to start those sales conversations using LinkedIn. And believe it or not, in this session, we are going to jam it with 8 different LinkedIn techniques that you're going to walk away with. And then again, at the end, some additional resources. So where are we starting with this? Let's just talk about what is happening for most B2B sellers in the real world every day. And that is, it is tough to break through to reach decision makers. Now, this was a quote actually from an executive who was asked, how does a new prospective vendor connect with you, reach you, get on your radar, talk to you? And this was his quote. You want to reach me, forget about cold calls or email, right? People are absolutely flooded, especially the last 12 months with every seller sitting behind their computer. They're flooded with inbound phone calls and emails. So how do you reach them? Number one, you either have to get introduced by somebody he knows or post something that catches his eye. So let's go ahead and go with the flow. If that's the way that decision makers are giving us the open doors to reach them, let's go ahead and focus on these. Particularly, again, as we sit here now, heading into year number 2 of COVID isolation, a lot of those decision makers are at home, only complicating the issue. So we're going to break down those 2 avenues that decision maker gave us. Now, the first one, when they're talking about getting introduced by somebody that they know, that's always been one of the greatest ways to start a sales conversation, because you're springboarding, leveraging off the trust and rapport that the other 2 parties have. So if you know somebody that knows a prospect and they know you well enough, they're willing to introduce you really and leverage their trust that they've already established, that is a great way to do it. So anybody in sales has known about that. You've known about that probably since your first week in sales. It's just that using LinkedIn is a new tool for doing it, and it's like putting it on steroids compared to the old way of getting referrals, the manual way, the non-social network enabled way. So we're going to really label that an outbound prospecting type of an activity for generating that first sales conversation. Now, the second way that decision maker gave you for getting on his radar is a completely different way. This is a newer way. Now, this really has only been possible for an individual seller to do since the emergence of social networks. Now, I always laugh when I say since the emergence of social networks, because LinkedIn itself is turning 18 this year. Can you believe it? 18 years old. So it's not exactly new. I wouldn't call that new necessarily, but really the practice of sharing content on LinkedIn with your network in order to raise your visibility and credibility and possibly drive an inbound lead, yeah, it's still not really mainstream for the majority of salespeople. But if you're listening today, I hope it is in about 40 minutes. So that one, we label it an inbound marketing, and there really should be some quotes around the term marketing, because even though it is an inbound marketing type of an activity, I want to emphasize that we're talking about something that's practiced by the individual salesperson, even if you're one of 3,000 salespeople for a large company. It's practiced by the individual salesperson. All right, so those are the two ways that we're going to start a sales conversation using LinkedIn. And again, so powerful in both of those areas, which are both very different. So let's get into it. Now, this is probably the most important single slide in our presentation here, because this represents what we call the 6 phases to modern selling. And this is the methodology that we use to train people how to generate more leads out of LinkedIn in some of our longer courses. And so we start off with the mindset of like, why is it important? What's changed? Are the leading trends that innovative companies are doing? And then we get into these 4 skill sets. We get into the brand, which is your LinkedIn profile. We get into finding and engaging, which is that prospecting and referral aspect. We talk about growing your network, which is the connection piece. And then finally, we talk about feeding your network with content, which again was that inbound marketing piece to generate an inbound inquiry from an interested prospect. Finally, the cadence piece is what takes all 4 of those lessons and skills and wraps them into a standard selling activities so that they become habits for people and part of their normal operating procedure. So with that in mind, the way we're going to get to these 8 tips today is I'm going to give you 2 tips in each of the 4 skills areas of brand, find and engage, connect, and feed. So with that, let's get into it. First one we're going to talk about is brand. So brand, why is that important? Well, according to LinkedIn, 75% of B2B decision makers review a salesperson's LinkedIn profile before engaging with them, right? Makes perfect sense. They're looking for credibility. They're looking for experience. They're looking for, has this person helped people like me or companies like me? Do they understand my problems? So they're looking for that credibility. So the question would be, what does your digital brand say about you? Now, if you're like a lot of sellers, it's been 12 months since you may have seen some of your prospects and customers. So it's very important that your online brand, which is available all the time, 24 hours a day, it's always been available online. What does that say about you? So we're going to take a look at it. Now, each one of these 4 skills, I will share with you an actual customer testimonial of a success that they had either starting a sale or moving it down the sales funnel or maybe even closing the sale. So here's one that's associated with brand. One of our clients told us that they actually won a large recruiting contract that all started when a prospect noticed their upgraded LinkedIn headline and reached out to them. Now, let's be fair. They still had to do some work between that initial inquiry and finally collecting a big commission check. Of course they did. But the point of this comment is that the whole thing started when a prospect noticed their LinkedIn headline. So here we go. I'm going to show you the before and after. Now, the before headline. So when I say headline, that is the little section that goes right underneath your name on LinkedIn. So, you always see the photograph of somebody, you see the name of somebody, and then underneath it, you see their headline. Now, the vast majority of people kind of make the mistake and they just put their headline in there. It might say, account executive at XYZ company. And that's really doing you a disservice, because that's not really what a prospect wants to see. What they want to know is, how do you help people like me? Now, with that in mind, this customer who won that big recruiting contract, originally their headline was simply their title, Senior Account Executive. And again, to repeat myself, that doesn't really communicate anything to the buyer. So they went through our program and they changed it to this headline. They changed it from Senior Account Executive to I help fast-growing tech companies hire and retain top software programming talent. Now, gang, if you are an HR recruiter for a fast growth tech company, you know it's hard to find software programming talent these days. So if you see somebody's headline on LinkedIn here because you happen to be doing a search, or they posted something online, or they showed up in a group, it doesn't make any difference. If that shows up, that's going to catch your eye. And in fact, it did. And this recruiter reached out to our staffing and recruiting specialists. They want a 6-figure contract. So you can be thinking of that in your own perspective. If you want to follow the formula, the simple formula is, who do you help? You probably don't sell to every single person in the world. Who do you help? In this case, fast growth tech companies. And what do you help them do? Hire and retain top software programming talent. Think of that for yourself. At the end of this session, I'm going to give you guys a resource that'll really help you on your profile. Now, the last tip, remember, we've got 2 tips for each of the 4 sections. So tip number 2, last one under your brand, is to take advantage of the fact that about a year ago, LinkedIn redesigned the profile to really feature media. And in fact, the section is actually labeled featured. And so when I say featured media, that just means that there are now really very large thumbnail images on your LinkedIn profile of whatever kind of digital asset you want to put on there. We can see a list here. It could be, you can put a LinkedIn post up there. You can put, link to a web page. It could be a static image. It could be any kind of a document, a PDF, a Word document, etc. It could be a link to a video even. And so what we're looking at here over on the right-hand side is just a screenshot of one of our clients. The difference card is in the employee benefits area. So we can see that in the LinkedIn profile makeover project that we did for that company, Jennifer Revel is one of their sales people there, and you can see she's got a couple of different pieces of featured media there. The first one is actually where it says, "Our clients love us," 94%. That's a link to a YouTube video. So somebody that landed on her profile and clicked that would go to a YouTube video, or they can get that PDF document with the chart. So again, it's a way to dress up or jazz up your profile by putting different media elements in there. All right, we're 25% of the way through. Those were the 2 tips for profile. Let's move on. Next one is finding and engaging. This is probably the most active prospecting activity that you might be doing. So how does that work? How does it play into starting a conversation with a prospect? Here's what a client told us. An IT director I'm connected with just started a new job, so it showed up in my LinkedIn notifications. I reached out to offer my congratulations, and the ensuing conversation ended up uncovering a data center opportunity. So again, starting a sales conversation that led to a new opportunity. In this case, it was triggered by a job change. So this quote is mentioning LinkedIn notifications. So gang, I hope you're using LinkedIn notifications to track changes like job changes. Now, right now, we're doing this live presentation is toward the beginning of the year. The majority of job changes happen in Q1. So make sure and pay attention to that right now. On the screen, you're just seeing a screenshot, which is an example of my notifications. And again, it's telling me people that got new position. In this case, if I happen to target, for example, chief financial officers, I can see right here that Anthony Tronquoy just started a new position as a chief financial officer at a real estate investment trust. So if that was my target market, I would absolutely want to congratulate, maybe reach out with a direct message, because these are all my level 1 connections. I'm getting notifications about my level 1 connections, which is kind of we're not quite ready for the segue, but it's a segue to point number 4, which is about growing your network through connections. So again, very valuable to track the changes of your network. It might reveal an opportunity for you. Now, the next thing I'm going to show you about prospecting is something that may not be available to everybody, but I want to highlight it because for the people that are using the premium version of LinkedIn, that's called LinkedIn Sales Navigator. That's their uber higher end tool for sales prospecting. It costs around $1,000 a year for LinkedIn Sales Navigator. but I believe it's really worth it if you do a lot of prospecting, because it gives you so many more features than you get in free LinkedIn. So again, might not apply to everybody, but if you have it, if you're making the investment, I want to make sure you know about some of these finer points. So here they are. Now, this is a screen. I came in, you can see kind of in that left-hand band there, I'm looking for people that are located in California that are my second degree connections, that are some kind of a senior level title, a CXO, a director, an owner, a partner, a VP. And I'm looking for people in HR. Maybe I'm that recruiter that we saw earlier, or I might sell employee benefits, anybody that would target an HR person. Now, the first thing we're seeing here in this green screen is it's showing me of all these people, and it came up with over 1,000 people, but it's saying that 8 of those people were mentioned in the news in the last 30 days. Now, that's usually a very good trigger event for you to reach out to them. Again, they may have been highlighted in an article, an industry news update. Maybe they won some award, best HR director of the year, etc. There's a lot of very positive things that come out of news mentions, and this is a trigger event. LinkedIn is telling you about it for your ideal customer profile. Gang, it hardly gets any better than that. There's one other really valuable, now, and again, it tends to be a very small percentage of your prospects where this is going to play out. But again, right here up on the screen, I've got 17 prospects. How many do you need? Now, this one is telling me leads that follow your company on LinkedIn. Again, it's one of those very valuable trigger events. Because if you think about it, if somebody is an ideal target prospect for you, they're in your territory, they're the right title, they're the right industry, they're the right company size, all those things, and they follow your company page, well, that's a huge intent signal that they're going to know who your company is. Obviously, they probably have been consuming the content that your social media manager is posting on your company page. So these people are very warm, right? It is not going to be a cold call if you reach out to them. If they're following your LinkedIn company page, that is a very warm intention signal. So if you have LinkedIn Sales Navigator, make sure you're using these very fine filters to find the people that are going to be the most likely to accept an invitation or even to take a phone call with you. All right, gang, we're halfway through. We're tracking right on time. Remember, we were alluding to that idea of growing your network. So now it is time to talk about number 4. How do you strategically grow your LinkedIn network? Now, we're going to talk about first the success, and then we're going to talk about the tactic. Here's a success from a client that said, I saw that a former coworker was connected to one of my top prospects. When I emailed her to ask for an introduction, she said, sure, I've known Susan for 10 years. I'm happy to make an introduction to you. Remember, our decision maker at the very beginning of this presentation said, one of the best ways, you have to get introduced by somebody I know. This is how you do it. By growing your network, you're increasing your chances. You're going to have a common connection. And if you reach out and ask that person for an introduction and they say, yeah, I do know him, I'll be happy to introduce you, you're in. Chances are very high you're going to be able to get that first meeting. So how do you find out? Well, as you're looking at a person's profile, you can see who they're connected to by your second level connection. So this is just a little chart. If you're sitting here at the left-hand side and you connect to everybody who then becomes your level 1, then the people who are your level 2 are actually directly connected to your level 1s, and therefore those are the people that can make an introduction if you have prospects in the tier 2 of this chart. Now, why is it important? Increasingly in a B2B sale, especially if you get into bigger dollar values, you're going to have many people on a buying committee. It's not just a single buyer that's making that decision. There's many influencers. They might have a formal buying committee, or there may be an informal one where you have decision makers. So that's why it's important to get that information. So in our training, we advise that the typical B2B seller, if you're in a hunter role and you are prospecting and bringing in new business, that you should have at least 1,000 LinkedIn connections. Now, when we say that, a lot of times people are like, oh, 1,000, that's big. Huh? Well, how am I going to get to that? I only have 327. That's fine for an average employee, but not if you're a B2B sales hunter out looking for business. You got to get into that 1,000 range. So where are they going to come from? Now, this slide might be a good one to grab a pen and paper if you want to take some quick notes, because I'm going to show you 10 different areas, 10 different categories of people where you should have people from your LinkedIn connections. Here we go. Number one, absolutely your customers. People that are your customers right now, you want to be connected to them on LinkedIn. We saw the example where one of them moved and took another job. So they may go along, they may hire you at that new company if you know that they're at the new company. And that's just not your single point of connection either, but you want to go up, down, and to each side, right? Connect with your connections boss, with people that work for your connection, with people over in other departments, customers. Obviously, prospects, same thing, up, down to both sides, not just don't be single threaded. Anybody that's a partner, there could be lots of different types of partners. You might be in a channel reseller or a two-tier distribution model where you have partners. There might just be people that do referral sources. So we've talked about a couple insurance agents. A lot of times insurance agents will partner with people like attorneys, CPAs, and bankers that are also those trusted advisors to the C-suite. Your coworkers, certainly. Past coworkers, people you used to work with, of course. Networking groups that you might be, those could be live networking groups, although not a lot of that's been going on the last 12 months. But these could be things that you physically go to once a week, once a month, once a quarter, or they could be, at this point, virtual networking groups. It doesn't make any difference. Industry associations, again, could be conferences you're attending in person or things that are virtual. Alumni of your college, a great source. There's this almost hard to define, but very powerful affinity that anybody that went to your college or university automatically has for you, even if you graduated 10 or 15 years earlier or later than they did, right? Just graduating from the same university gets you an affinity that a lot of times is valuable. And 10th one, a really important one, who's viewed your profile? If you see people, there's a feature on LinkedIn that tells you who's been looking at you. And if you go in and look at that, many times you can find that people that are actually prospects have looked at your profile. And that's a great place where you can come in and then reach out to them. Hey, I know she looked at my profile. Do you mind if I ask what it happened to be? Or I'd be happy to connect with you, those types of things. So that's a great area to do it. I'll give you guys a little homework assignment if you want to do it, if you want to kind of find out, where am I? How do I find out? I don't even know how many connections I have. So you can find out if you just come in to your LinkedIn screen and you click the second icon button that's up at the top, the second one right just to the right of the one that says home screen, and it'll say My Network. And if you click on the one that says My Network, and you look over on the far left-hand side, it's going to show you. You can see in my orange square right there, it's showing you my screen. Now, obviously, I have a very large network because I'm a LinkedIn sales training expert, and this is exactly, this is all I've done for like 10 years. I've been focused on it, so I have a large network. So 21,000 is a lot, but shoot for 1,000 if you really want to get those advantages of introductions and having more people see your content when you share it. Okay, that sounds like we just teed up another opportunity talking about growing your network. So I would encourage you, if we're not connected, go ahead and send me a LinkedIn invitation. You can just go right to my profile, Kurt Shaver, Kurtshaver, and make sure and tell me where you saw me, where you heard about me. And when you do that, then I'll go ahead and respond appropriately. So I'll look forward to connecting with you soon. All right, the last benefit that we talked about by growing your network is you're increasing your audience to see the content that you post. So how does that benefit a seller? Well, here is a testimonial from a client. A CIO, Chief Information Officer. Chief Information Officer liked my post about cybersecurity insurance. I thanked him and asked him what prompted it. He said it's a hot topic with the company's board right now, and we have a call next week to discuss their requirements. Now, again, this is not the proactive prospecting that we saw, but this is actually by posting content. It's kind of like, sometimes people use the term honeypot. It's kind of like putting a little honeypot out there and then, seeing if that will attract the bear to come to your honeypot, right? Winnie the Pooh liking his honeypot. And so that's the idea. If you put the right content out there and people come in and they comment or they like or something like that, you can go back and look and see, is that person a prospect for me? Again, it's very easy to connect and engage with that person because they already took the action themselves by liking or commenting on the post that you made. So it's a great prospecting method to find new people. So there are different types of content that you might share. There's really 3 categories. Now, the first one is the easiest one. That would be some kind of company information. So I'm showing you an example here of something that was posted to the LinkedIn company page. And this is a blog post that we wrote about sales prospecting. So as an employee at Vengreso, very easy for me to just like my own company page, follow my own company page, see this content when it comes out, and either share it, like it, comment, anything like that. The second type of content would be industry content. So it wasn't produced by my marketing department, but it's just something that is about my industry, and I'm pretty sure that my network of connections would be interested in it. Now, in this case, what we're looking at is a report by McKinsey, the global consulting company, and they're talking about how COVID-19 has changed B2B sales. That's what you're all here for, to listen to anyway. And so this one actually has a lot of research, a lot of statistics and things. So yeah, absolutely. My audience of sales leaders, sales enablement leaders, even marketing executives are going to be interested in something like this McKinsey report about COVID-19. And then finally, there is user-generated content. User-generated content means you made it. And again, we want to be business related on LinkedIn. This is not Facebook. I'm not asking you to post something about your Sunday barbecue or, hey, your kid just won the art contest in kindergarten, unless you can spin it into business, which is very effective actually. What you're seeing here is a great example. One of our clients this is another insurance agent, happens to be an insurance agent, Todd Jackson. And what he's started doing this year, it's been very effective, is he's a guitar player. So he's been posting these videos on LinkedIn. And he kind of starts out like the first, maybe like 20 seconds playing a very popular song on the guitar. And then he switches, he really relates that, makes kind of an analogy about whatever the guitar song has to be, about some particular point that has to do with business insurance. So it's actually very clever. It's pretty entertaining. He shows a personality side of him. So all of those things that make it interesting and have a little entertainment value, but still have informational value, makes it very well served. So those are some of the things that you can do when you think about content. Now, the flip side of the content coin is you can actually engage with something that someone else posted. Okay, so the one we just left was 3 types of content for you to share on LinkedIn. Now we're going over to the other side of the coin, where you're looking at your homepage feed. You're seeing content that other people have shared. And then the question is, what actions can you take that might get you involved in conversations, might showcase your expertise, might get you involved in a conversation with a prospect? So there's 4. The first one is you can simply give it the thumbs up like. Now, that doesn't take a lot of energy, and it also doesn't yield a lot of results, right? That is absolutely the smallest little effort that you can make. It's nice, but it's not really gonna tend to get you a lot of traction. Not anywhere near if you actually comment on somebody else's post and you bring your subject matter expertise, you bring your thoughts, your opinions, your perspective, your experience to add to the conversation that's happening around that post. And again, people are going to see it. The other thing you can do is you could actually share that back out with your network. And when you do that, you're going to want to put your perspective in the little personal commentary area. You're going to want to put your thoughts, your experience, what you thought about it. And then the last element of this is the sending piece of it. Now, a lot of people aren't aware of the sending piece. Now, this is different. When I say sharing, you're sharing that back out to your LinkedIn network of all your connections. But sending is a one-to-one. It's like an email. So if you see something on LinkedIn and you think, wow, this is really relevant to a conversation I had just 2 days ago with one of my prospects, I'm sure they would value this. Well, you can send it to them, assuming you're connected on LinkedIn, level 1, you better be, to a customer or a prospect. Come on. So you can send it to them through LinkedIn messaging as a private one-on-one. Say, hey, I saw this on LinkedIn today. It reminds me of the conversation that we had. I thought you'd be interested in it. I look forward to our follow-up call next Wednesday. Boom, you send it through LinkedIn Messenger instead of email. So those are the ways that you can engage with that content. Okay, gang, whoo, I'm going to catch my breath here. We covered a lot here, and well, it wasn't 1 hour, it was about 40 minutes, but we've covered a lot. So just as a quick recap, 2 tips in each of the 4 skills area. On the branding side, we talked about upgrading your headline to say, who do you help and what outcomes do you help them achieve? And then add some featured media in there to kind of jazz up your profile. The next thing we talked about was how do you find and engage? And we highlighted using the notification sections for things like job changes, and also using the advanced search, whether you're using free or LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Then over on the connection side, we talked about the power of growing your connections so that you can get more introductions. And then we listed, remember, those 10 centers of influence that you should be looking at as you grow your network above 1,000 connections. The last thing we looked at was the content aspect, feeding content to your network to continue to raise your visibility and credibility. We talked about 3 types of content: company content, industry content, and your user-generated content. And then finally, we talked about 4 different ways to react. Gang, any one of these 8, and you saw the examples in the customer testimonials, any one of these 8 could lead to your next big sale. So I encourage you to put them all to use. Now, I promised you guys some free resources. Here we go. The first one pertaining to your online brand. We have a resource which is called The Ultimate Guide to LinkedIn Profiles for Sales Professionals. You can also find it directly on the Vengreso.com website. This is a free ebook that'll walk you through the 10 sections of a LinkedIn profile and give you some guidance on how to really dress it up, make yourself look all sexy on LinkedIn, attract the right prospects to you. So that is a great resource, and really, as you know, step 1 of playing the LinkedIn game. The next thing that I want to mention is in November, we brought out a free software tool that's going to save you time. It's a text expander type of tool. So it's a fast text tool where you can write in a couple of keystrokes and it'll, pop up like a whole paragraph. So as you have these repeated types of messages, you're asking somebody to connect on LinkedIn, or you're thanking them to connect, or things like that. There might be 15 or 20 common messages. And so this is a tool that really just plain saves you time. If it saves you 20 minutes a day, there you go, times 5 days a week, you just saved 100 minutes to do something else more productive. So it's a productivity tool. It's a free Chrome extension. If you want to check it out, you just go to flymessage.io and you can check it, download it, play around with it. Free extension, great time saver. All right. And if you want more training, you probably know Vengreso is a digital sales training company, including LinkedIn training. So we offer a variety of different types of sales training. Now, this page is the for fee page. Everything up to now has been the free. These are the things that people pay us for. If you're an individual, we have an on-demand course that you can take. It includes a messaging playbook. You can come back to a group coaching session and ask your questions live from Vengreso LinkedIn experts. So if you want to find out about that, again, you can go to the Vengreso company page, click on some of the links, or just go to moresalescalls.com. Any of those will take you to that. That's for individuals. So if you're just a solo entrepreneur yourself, or a consultant, or somebody like that, or you might be a single salesperson, but in a sales team of 300, and your company isn't ready for it, but you can do that. Now, if you are a sales leader, however, for a sales team, you want to talk to us about our team training, which brings a bunch of other elements into it, more customization for your particular company, etc. We also will create those profile upgrades for your entire team. We also do it for individuals, but the team element just has more components to take advantage of the energy and the motivation and the elements of a team. So either one of those are available. Love to talk to you guys about it. All right. So guys, we promised we'd answer a couple questions. So I see a couple here that I'm going to answer. If you've got any, you can type them into the questions chat box, and we'll jump up and take a look at those for another couple of minutes. Here's a one we got that is a very common question. The question is, how often should we post on LinkedIn? Now, there's some good guidance, and there's actually the best answer. Sounds like it's kind of a smart alecky answer, but the best answer is you should post as often as you have valuable and relevant content for your network. That's how often you should post. But of course, what most people want is a number. They want to know, like, how many times a week should I post? So let me explain the first smart alecky answer, and then I'll come back to give you the answer that you want. So again, if you have a tremendous stream of valuable content, either from your company, or because you follow industry news, or because you're so creative you come up with it yourself, then by all means, it's not too much to post 2 or 3 times a day. Again, if it's valuable to your audience, they're not going to feel overwhelmed. They're not going to feel saturated. They're not going to say too much. As long as it's good value to them, they're going to say, bring it on. The reality is most people do not have that volume of great, relevant, valuable content to their audience. So on a realistic basis, you should shoot for a couple of times a week. If you can find maybe a piece of company content and industry content a couple times a week, that's going to really raise your visibility and credibility. And if you can up your game a little bit to start to generate some user-generated content that you think of, maybe you take a picture when you're at a trade show, whenever we can get back to trade shows, or maybe you're starting to make customer visits and you could do a photo and post it, or just something that they ask you. Any of those things are going to up your game. Maybe now you're up to 3 times a week. So that's an answer there. We've got a question here about growing your network. Question is, should I accept all inbound LinkedIn invitations to me? In other words, a lot of people sometimes say, oh, I only accept it if I know people or if I've met them or something like that. So I would say if you only accept invitations from people that you've actually met in person, you're going to be really limiting your success on LinkedIn. Gang, it is a virtual world these days. It's a digital, remote, virtual world these days. If it wasn't before COVID, it sure is now. So that is way too narrow for the majority, vast majority of sellers to have some kind of a tight filter, like I only connect with people that I've met in person. You want it to go big. Now, that doesn't mean you have to connect it to everybody. If you look at somebody and you think like, oh, I can't imagine in my wildest dreams how I'd have any kind of commonality with this person, or they don't run in my same business circles whatsoever. Or let me give you a real extreme example. If I get a LinkedIn invitation and it's in like a language I don't recognize, if it's in Russian, kanji, or something like that, the chances I'm going to have a meaningful conversation with that person is pretty small. I won't accept those. Otherwise, I'm usually pretty liberal in order to grow that network. And you saw that I had 21,000 connections. Okay, last question that I'm seeing here is, what's the best way to build my brand? Well, I would say the best way to build your brand on LinkedIn, the best way to build your brand is it's really this twofold practice that you just keep going back and forth. And if you think of our chart, right, I'm going to focus on skills number 4 and 5. What was skill number 4? Yeah, connect. Skill number 5 was feed. So if you just keep growing your network and feeding them good content, that'll grow your network. And then you feed more people your good content, and that'll grow your network. And you feed more people good content, and you grow your network, and you feed more people content. Eventually, you're going to get up to a very large audience that really respects you, loves the content you're sharing, is hanging on your every post, and they're going to start reaching out to you inbound. Hey, can you help me with this? Hey, we've got a project for you. Hey, I think you might be able to, help us with this thing coming up. And so that's really the best way to build your brand. Do both of those in parallel. Grow your network and build your muscle to build your frequency of valuable content posting, and you will build your brand and drive more inbound leads with LinkedIn. And hey, that was the whole purpose of this session. So you can see all the resources at vengreso.com, and we'll catch you on the next Modern Sales Mastery Show.